everybody. Adam from Atlas Gunworks. We're going to talk timeline and mag history of the 2011. What's interesting about this is that the gun platform's exploding. This video is getting taped in 2025. The last 5 years, let's say 2020 to 2025, has been the fastest growing category in handguns and probably in firearms in totality. But the holdback was always the magazines. So for those of you who are newer to the platform, we'll give you a bunch of history on why the magazines were a problem and why this platform wasn't more popular 15, 20 years ago. So the platform came out was getting developed in the late 80s, came out in the 90s. And then there was a patent that on the frame design where the frame and grip are separate from mid 90s to 2007, if memory serves me. And I'm going to give you what I remember. So I might be off by a year here and there on the dates. But the two companies that were involved were STI and SVI. So SVI is a break off of STI. The Strayer Trip International is STI, and Strayer Voigt International was the SVI. So that's a patent. That's two people who are on a patent who split and have their own competing brands. For that whole time, there's only two other mags in the marketplace besides these two original mags. So the original STI mags, and this is a 40 cal mag, were two-piece. So you have two clams of the mag and they weld them in the front. They weld them in the front and the back. And the 40 cals is actually a half a 45 and this is a 45 side and a half a 9mm side welded together because they didn't want to make their own tube. The company back then was run pretty bare bones. The marketing was to all competition guys. The lockback, the followers did not work at all. Like it was impossible to make a set of those work consistently. So that's what kept everyone out of the general market, right? Your average consumer's used to the gun locking back, hard to sell it to somebody and train them not to do that. The competition guys all wanted the shaved down thin followers anyway. They cut the lockback feature out and just got used to running the guns without the lockback feature. And so the problem with this, and the SV mags are just the same, they look very different, but they're the same kind of function for the most part, is a two-piece welded. So the problem with that is if the two pieces aren't lining up perfect and it's not welded perfect, your consistency is almost never there. So you have a lot of mags that are just never going to be right. And then you've got a bunch of even more in the category of they need to get hit with a hammer a whole bunch to work right. And so we used to do a lot of that tuning here. And then you have some that are just never going to work. And then some did work right out of the box. So this is archaic way to make mags. To my knowledge, SV still makes them this way. STI changed, and their change actually helped change the entire industry. So I'm not familiar with the engineer or the guys over there that did the change for the lockback design, and the new mags, but it was basically put this platform in a position to be bought by the general population, not just competition guys. So this is the early days when we started. These are the only two that were available. The SVs were super expensive. These were hard to get and difficult to tune. It was really crappy. The thing sucked and you had to tune the mag. So when we very first started, we sent the guns to everybody with 4 tuned mags because most of the time when you send somebody a gun and they're like, it doesn't work, it was their mag. So we started the company in 2015. That's all that was available at that point. In between then, 2 other guys popped into the market, and this is a labeled ST40. This is a mag that's not made. Almost all these mags are made out of stainless steel, stamped stainless steel, sheet metal, right? And this is made out of not stainless, some other kind of metal that flexes a lot. And we used to be able to get like over 20 rounds in these in 40 cal, which was unheard of. But they were super inconsistent and they didn't always flex the same. I think this is the South African company, but these were short-lived. I don't think you could even find these anymore. I found one in my toolbox. So this was something that just really didn't work. One thing to note about these is the early STIs, to run 9mm, you had to put a plastic or metal spacer in the back. They came with a plastic one. The SV had cured that because theirs was a little bit newer and they had a different rib design that pushed the 9mm bullets up. So they didn't need a spacer. That's why in 9mm, the SVs were a better choice. There's one I don't have, and I have some of these tubes, I couldn't find them, called SPS. That's a foreign mag. Those guys basically ripped off the patent overseas. And I know there were some battles with different folks about that or whatever. Those mags were same thing, very inconsistent and super hard to get. So we tried demoed them a couple of times and we couldn't make them consistently work. So you've got a platform, from our perspective, from Atlas's perspective, we're not building mags at this point. We're a very small company, and we can't get mags to work, and we can't even get enough mags to tune to send with the gun. So there's a constant battle. And so, you know, the original group here wasn't doing things all that well. And then MBX pops onto the marketplace and they have a better finished product. They have a better tube design. They're still welding them together. So you still have the inconsistency of them welding. So what we found with these is if you get a good one, they're good. If you get a bad one, they're bad. And there's almost nothing you could do about it. You got to throw them out. And the warranty and all that was pretty much non-existent. They also had spring issues and they sent them with, I think they still send them with 3D printed followers, which isn't ideal. They're rough. And so the difficulty in this is that the company didn't do any evolution to make better mags, to make one. What you should do with these, instead of being two pieces, it's a one piece and you folds around. So the front is all continuous and you only weld in the back. That's the proper way to make a mag these days. These were difficult. The company was difficult to work with. There was an issue here with an infringement on the Terran patent, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot going on here. So we've used these mags a couple of times in our history and it just became untenable. So these mags are still in existence. They're made the old way. If you get a good one, you get a good one. If you get a bad one, you know, you're out of luck. I don't know the timing in my head between when the MBX dropped and STI released their new tubes. So this is a fancy, and I don't know if the camera will pick this up, but this says Atlas. Is actually engraved by the CNC machine Atlas on the back. And we actually added the extra witness holes back here because we would tune them to hold extra rounds. So this actually says 23, 24. This is actually a mistake one where we had a couple, so that's why it was in my toolbox. But STI drops this brand new mag. They made it in conjunction with Checkmate. It's a one piece, so they fold it around, weld in the back. So we're only dealing with one weld. Because when the welds are bad and rough, your follower's going by that, and that's a huge problem, right? Your follower's dragging. So in this mag and all these mags, you're worried about the front and the back weld. And in the new mags, this new STI mag, you're only worried about the back weld. So a lot of times we'd have to go in there and sand those out. And as the time's gone on, everybody's doing a better job of making these and taking the rough spots out, but you can't have rough spots in your mags. So this mag was really good. The design was really close to being where it needed to be. And I don't know if there was a couple of problems with the tube. This dimension here, we used to tune them all. We used to put them in a vise and squeeze them all. This dimension here was too wide. So the bullets, when they're supposed to be single stacking, would be too wide, and the spring couldn't overcome the pressure. So if you tighten them up a little bit, they worked really well. So we were telling STI that the whole time. And eventually, if you get one of their newer ones that says, I think V3 or G3 on the bottom corner, they've tightened up that spec a little bit. But these were made in conjunction with Checkmate. I don't know if Checkmate couldn't hit the dimensions correctly when they were stamping them, or if STI gave them a bad print. But something was off there, their tolerances. They should have, because some of them were in spec and to our spec and some weren't. But they eventually got a little better on that. I don't know about the consistency on them now, but I know that the last time I saw a G3 one or whatever it's called was better. But that's not the sexy thing. It was just a huge upgrade. They got the internal ribs are set up so that they work with 9mm without a spacer. That was a big upgrade for them. But the thing they did, and funny enough, I don't even do it in a video. I don't even have one in front of me. But they came out with the new version of follower for lockback, and the follower's just flared at the bottom. So what used to happen in the old tubes is the follower was narrow and it would float left and right. So it never came up to the top same spot every time. The flared follower, whoever did that, genius, and I probably copied it from someone else, but I'm sure other mags are using this. But in this thing, the way they did that and designed that, it worked perfect. So all of a sudden, and I'm going to make up the year here, I don't know, but I'm guessing this was somewhere around 2017, 18, 17 probably. No, they probably came out sooner than that. We were moving into the new building and they had them. So yeah, somewhere 2016, 17, these come out. There are some issues, but you can work through them. But that flared follower lets the gun lock back consistently. And now we can sell these to everybody, not just competition guys. So my mindset wasn't there. Atlas wasn't thinking about that. We were busy building a lot of competition folks, or mostly competition folks. So STI at the time gets bought and sold a couple of times in this time frame we're talking about. But the final sale goes to a VC group that has a fair amount of money and is a fairly good marketing company, if not really good marketing company. So they take this thing platform mainstream. So all of us behind them are just, benefiting from the fact that now they're selling these guns to everybody, not just competition guys. So while Trip owned it, and then Trip sold it to an electronics guy, Dave, I can't remember his last name. in Texas, and he ran it up until like 2007 or 8 when they sold it to an ESOP, and then it went through a bunch of transitions. But in one of those, the second to last one, I think they came up with this, and this has changed the entire market. So credit to whoever those guys are. I don't know who they are. And so now the gun's locked back. They're marketing to the whole world. It takes a couple of years for them to get the marketing thing kind of worked out. And again, I'm going to make up numbers, but they're, I think, still STI in 2018. And then 2019, somewhere in there, they become Staccato, maybe 2020. So this is actually that same tube that would now say Staccato on it, says STI on it. And so now they're marketing to the whole world. The tubes still aren't good enough, and they won't sell us enough. So at one point, I'm on the phone having, begging the top 3 people at the time, it was still STI, but the folks who ended up making it Staccato, to sell us 100 9mm tubes a month just to keep us going. And we were able to cut that deal, but they wouldn't sell us any 40s, and it was a nightmare. And then the business relationships with the MBX guys was pretty untenable. And we talked to MBX about buying them, and that kind of didn't work out. But at the same time, we were in development of our own tube. So taking all the things that worked well and didn't work well from these, we develop a tube that's superior to everybody's tube. And of course we'd have that opinion, but I could prove that. And so we just developed a one-piece tube, does all the things we like. We're new to tube development, follower development, and spring development. So there's been a continuous growth pattern here of us adding both follower development, spring development, and base pad development we have going on too. So we're continuously improving the mags. The mag's a critical function of the gun, but historically, these mags were so hard to make run right, the gun wasn't really good for general consumption, and the new stuff is good enough, the second half here, that folks can just buy these guns and run them. And so the mag history here is really important. If you get these older mags or run into them, you probably want to be careful. Test before you, test and verify before you use them. They're not all created the same. And, the tube design, that makes a huge difference. And generically, everyone who's building guns, so Atlas, Staccato at this point, the Prodigies from Springfield, and then, 500 clone companies are all running the same mag. So I don't have anybody else's here. There's a whole bunch of other guys that are sending mags with their guns, and they're doing their own thing. But most of them are inferior to a properly tuned Staccato mag or one of our tubes. And so just changing your mags can make a huge performance difference. And then I'm assuming other folks are, but we're always in development process. We've got a whole bunch of new stuff we're always working on. So as that comes, we'll roll out new products. And the mags will continue to get better. But the mags are usable today, and the lockback feature works. And that's the history of this mag. And so the mag was the limiter on this gun not being in general consumption for the last 30 years. Hope to see you all in the range soon.